Good morning or good afternoon. I'm calling the meeting of the Maui County Board of Ethics to order. It's 12:42 on December 11, 2024. Please turn off your cell phones. Chair, I'm at home in Laia, and I'm going to call a roll call and ask that you say where you are and if you're alone. Katie Schroeder.
This is Katie. I am alone in my home in Lahaina.
Carol Schwan.
I'm in my office alone.
And Chivo Ching Johnson.
Good morning, or good afternoon. I am at my office at Akaku, and my friend and editor, Chris Dack, is way across the room with headphones on.
Okay, and I see Caleb Rowe, our court counsel, is online, as well as Tabitha Mark, our board secretary.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Howdy. First on the agenda is public
Randall.
testimony. It's limited to 3 minutes.
Captain Lily.
Did I miss Randall? Randall, are you
I'm
there?
home alone in Kihei.
All right, sorry to skip over you. So public testimony is limited to 3 minutes. If you're unable to conclude, you may request additional time if approved by the board. Please mute your audio and video at all times except when you're called upon by the chair. Tabitha, do we have any public testimony?
No, we don't have anyone signed up to testify.
Okay. And do we have any written?
No, we don't.
Okay, so then we'll move along to new business. Pig update. I don't think we have a pig update report. The next issue is a request for advisory opinion 24A18. I assume everybody's had a chance to review it.
Chair,
Yes.
we have Cecile Powell here to speak on her item when you're ready.
Okay.
You want her to come up?
Let's hear from. Yes, let's hear from her. Thank you.
Aloha, testing the microphone. Aloha, Chair. Thank you very much. My name is Cecile Powell. I am a County of Maui employee for the Department of Environmental Management. I am speaking on behalf of myself today. My question is a general one, and then I have a little bit more specifics for this situation. I have staff, and we have a number of grantees throughout the community, and I want to know if it is okay or unethical for me to assign managerial tasks to staff whose immediate family members are employees of the grantee or contractor. This specific situation, one of my staffs has a son who works for Kalima o Maui, who doesn't work for directly related to the grant deliverables per se, but he does work for the maintenance department of Kalima o Maui. But Kalima o Maui receives a grant for a paper shredding recycling program. And I would like her to be reviewing QARs that includes quarterly narrative reports, financial reports, and then submitting quarterly allotment statements to for them to receive payment. That's basically all my information I have. Please let me know if anybody has any questions. Thank you.
I have one. Is it correct that this child is not a dependent child?
Correct. He is an adult. He is, I believe he collects disability. He's not a dependent of the staff member.
Okay. And anybody else have questions?
Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Ms. Powell, And this is I'm the attorney for the board, and I just want to ask a couple of clarifying questions for when we issue our opinion. To your knowledge, is this a direct appropriation grant that was done through the budget process, or was this done through the normal grants program where people apply?
It's not a provisoed grant. This one goes through the
Okay.
recycling grants program. We have a recycling review committee that selects them. This employee that I'm questioning just recently onboarded, so she wasn't part of the selection process for this grantee. But that would sort of stem out to another question then, if one of our employees or someone who's on the recycling review committee does have an immediate family member related to or working for a grant applicant, what happens during this instance during the review process? Do they need to leave the room? Can they score the grant? What do I do? Thank you.
That's all I had, Chair. Thank you.
Does anybody else on the board have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
noticed
thank you, Ms.
that-
Powell.
Hello, can you hear me, Captain?
Yes,
Go ahead,
Chivo, we can
Chivo.
hear you.
Yeah, I was just curious. It says that the employee or the son works not under the grant, but for the company itself, for Kalima o Maui. Does that son have any contact at all with any of the workings of the grant?
Thank you, Chair. No, they do not. I did ask staff member this question, and Kaipo, he actually works in the maintenance department for Kalima o Maui. So he's off doing jobs off-site, and this specific paper shredding program takes place at their facility behind the police station in Kahului. Or I guess it's Wailuku.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? I did talk to our attorney on this issue, and there are prohibitions when it comes to a dependent child, but in this case, the child is not a dependent, and so it doesn't come within the definition of 4-101-3. So,
And Chair,
other discussion?
if I may, Chair, if I may, we had discussed when we looked at this, we looked at section 10-41C of the charter, which is a prohibition against engaging in any business transaction or activity or having a financial interest, direct or indirect, which is incompatible with the proper discharge of the officer or employee's official duties, or which may tend to impair the officer or employee's independence of judgment. Under our rules, we do have a definition for financial interest, and that's, as you said, under 4-101-3. And it says that it's an interest held by an individual, the individual's spouse, or dependent children. So if it's not a dependent children, we do not consider that to fall under the definition of a financial interest, pursuant to our rules.
So I'd like to entertain a motion that this doesn't, because of the definition, it doesn't implicate an ethical issue, and to issue an advisory opinion to that effect.
I will make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I second.
And Chair, just Chair, just for
Go
some
ahead.
clarification, before we vote on this, a lot of the times when we do issue an opinion saying that there's no direct conflict with the code of ethics, we do kind of put some warning language in there of kind of things that in this case the employee shouldn't be doing. And I think the one that we had identified when we met was primarily 10-41B, which is disclosing of information which by law or practice is not available to the public and which the officer or employee acquires in the course of the officer or employee's official duties. So I just wanted to clarify if that warning was part of the motion, if Katie could clarify.
Yes, let's include that.
I apologize. I just wanted to specify one thing that may weigh your consideration here is that Kalima o Maui is a repeated contractor, so they are going to be bidding on future contractual services for the County of Maui, of which I'm not certain if her son would be involved in those future RFPs or bid specifications for future work.
Should we add language that mentions the possibility in the future? And if in event he is involved in any of the work that is covered by one of those grants, that they should report that?
Caleb, is that appropriate?
That's up to you guys. I still think that based on our definition of financial interest, it doesn't really matter if the son is working directly under a grant program, because our financial interest definition does not cover non-dependent children.
Yeah. So any further discussion? I'd like to call for
I
a
will
vote.
amend.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say for the record, I would amend my motion.
And we have a second on the amended motion.
A second.
Chivo?
Yes, please. Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, I'll call for the vote. So Michael Lilly, Chivo, Katie? I'm not having very good internet here. Randy, have you voted?
Yes.
And Carol? Do we have a unanimous?
Seems unanimous.
Okay. So it passes 5-0. So moving on to advisory opinion number 24A-19. And do we have any testifiers on this one, Tabitha?
Yes, you do. Brian Ward is here. He's coming up to the podium
Okay.
now.
Okay, good.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time and opportunity to speak with you. I recently was appointed to the Maui Planning Commission in September of this year. My first meeting of attendance was October 8th, and on November 26th, which was my fourth meeting, we had a case before us that the Intervenors Council raised concern that my participation on the board of Wailea Community Association was in conflict or potentially in conflict with the case, which was about the Grand Wailea, which I believe has been contested for about 5 years at this point. So it's not a new case by any means. And to the best of my knowledge and awareness, that was already scheduled pre my appointment. And if it was not pre my appointment, that meeting was scheduled at least pre my first Board of Ethics on Maui Planning Commission on October 8th. Unfortunately, they did not raise any concerns up until literally minutes before that agenda item was starting on the 26th, not permitting me the opportunity to come to the Board of Ethics to see if there is a conflict. In short, I've been on WCA's board for 4 years. I am not an officer. I've not been an officer. I was responsible for the strategic community group or committee. My term is ending in March of this coming year, and I'm not intending on running again. So the question really comes down to is that on January 28th, I believe the day is, the agenda item for the Grand will be back up. And so I'm looking to seek guidance if I can participate. Out of abundance of caution, on the 26th of November, I did not participate. So I did sit there for approximately 6 hours, unable to engage or do anything in the meeting. So I would thank you for actually getting this on the agenda, so that if you do have questions or we have follow-up, there's ample time before our next meeting. With that, my engagement, as I've had no engagement with the Grand Wailea other than one meeting, which was June 21st of 2023. And that was actually under the representation of being part of the South Maui Community Advisory Community Group, our planning group for CPAC. And the opportunity was requested by all of the general managers for an update on what was basically happening with the plan, what our vision was, so that they could start to see how they could be in alignment and work together collectively as a group. The accusation from the Intervenors Council is that because of my role in being on the board, and with the Grand Wailea being the biggest donation or donator to WCA, that's a conflict of interest. So to clarify, it's not actually donations, it's dues. Every person that, or being retail, commercial, resorts, residential, all pay dues into the association, which is for maintenance of roads, upkeep, staff, marking, different programs that we have in place, like water quality management testing, fire prevention, fire breaks, maintenance, design review. So there's no financial gain. I've never been paid. I have never received benefits. I've not had any type of compensation by any means over the 4 years, or approximately 4 years. And I think that's about it.
Thank you for clarifying that, because I had a question about, at one point you were talking about a grant, and then you clarified that all that the Grand Wailea does is it pays dues to the association.
Correct. And I did supply to you our CC&Rs, which includes the schedule of how it's broken down. So it's all very mapped out.
Yeah, you got quite a package, you said. So, are there any questions? Caleb, any board member have a question?
I have a quick question. Just in case the board hasn't really had a chance to look through it, you said that Grand Wailea is the person who pays the highest amount of dues. Could you explain to us a little bit how the amount of dues are decided upon?
So I'll give you my understanding. It's not something that I was personally responsible for or involved with. But my understanding is that everyone within the community, based on their lot size or building size, that you get a percentage allocation of votes. That's then translated over into a dollars cost, and then that's what you pay as part of your dues on an annual basis. So for the Grand Wailea, I know that based on size of room or total number of rooms, types of restaurants, if they have commercial real estate, and this goes for all the resorts, all of those things are factored into different percentage levels. That gives the voting rights. And then with that translates over to what your dues are. But again, I wasn't responsible for any of that. Our general manager, Bud Pacrone, is the one that handles that.
Okay, thank you for that. That's the only question I had, Chair.
Any other questions by board? Oh, Chivo.
When you say votes, is there a percentage of votes depending on the size of the properties?
Correct.
So how many votes would, say, the Grand Wailea get as opposed to an individual would have one vote and the Grand Wailea would have?
I don't know the exact percentages because it changes based on how many rooms. So they're actually, our general manager is in the process of actually recalculating some of that, because there's been some additions due to COVID. Additional rooms have been built, things have been swapped in, new restaurants and retail have gone in various places. But in short, what I can do is I can explain, like my community that I live in, we have 150 units. So we each get one vote. And that vote is when it's coming down to our annual, and it's voting board members on. There are 2 residential, there are 2 resort, The rest are declarant based, and there's 9 of us in total.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Ward.
Thank you. Am I all set now?
Well, I don't see the financial conflict in this.
Thank you.
Yep.
Unless you have any other thoughts, I'd entertain a motion that that we find there isn't a conflict.
I believe that it's more an issue of the appearance of potential conflict, especially for the person who decided to talk about this issue, that Mr. Ward is on the board of the Wailea Community Association. Not that he would have any kind of financial gain, but again, I think it speaks to the appearance of potential conflict.
Yes. Catherine, I agree with that. That's pretty much the whole issue that I would see is, you know, the number of votes that the Grand Wailea or other large properties would hold. And this gentleman sitting on the planning commission reviewing things like that. So I would guess that we would want to put in some kind of a comment or warning about that. Caleb, can I ask your opinion on that?
So when we did discuss it, we looked at 2 potential portions of the Code of Ethics. One is 10-4-1C, which is the one we discussed at the last one about engaging in a business transaction. There's also E about failure to disclose a financial interest. And then there's also G, which is use or attempt to use the officer or employee's official position to secure or grant unwarranted consideration, privileges, exemptions, advantages, contracts, or treatment for oneself or others. So if I could just kind of mention a few things fairly quickly. The Wailea Community Association is a nonprofit entity that is paid for by dues that are based on property assessments that are done by the organization. Another thing that we want to consider, right, is that the entity that is appearing before the Maui Planning Commission is the Grand Wailea. It's not the Wailea Community Association. So the Wailea Community Association is not the applicant in the action that's appearing before them. So what we're looking at is we're not looking at whether or not he's on the board of an applicant that's appearing before him. It's he's on the board of a nonprofit, and the applicant is also a member of that nonprofit. Not even on the board; they're also a member of the nonprofit.
Thank you for that.
We considered a similar matter to this in the Kanahele matter last year, and we did issue an advisory opinion advising that he recuse himself, but when we did so, we specifically said that it was with regard to the subdivision association. We didn't say that it was with regard to individual members within that subdivision association. So this is a step beyond that. This is saying, you know, the conflict is that is that it's a co-member. It's someone else who is a member of that nonprofit entity, whether or not them appearing before the Maui Planning Commission would create a conflict. So those are just some things that I wanted to point out that I think might be relevant to your consideration.
Thank you.
So does anybody have a motion?
I would make a motion that we find that there's no necessarily conflict of interest as far as financial benefits, but that the appearance of a possible crossing over of of entities should be considered. And if he feels that it's getting into a sensitive area, that he should consider recusing himself.
Or he could also follow up with an opinion or even an informal opinion
Right.
from our council.
There you go. That would be fine too.
So,
Okay,
and
can we,
I just, sorry, and I did just want to mention, he is talking about an item that is appearing at the January 26th Maui Planning Commission meeting, and his question is whether or not he needs to recuse himself from participation in that particular meeting. So I think we do need to give a direct answer to that question.
yes, and Katie, can you amend your motion to address that he does not need to recuse himself from that meeting?
I believe it was TiVo who made the motion.
Chivas.
Oh, the
Yeah.
TiVo.
Yes. Yeah. I will amend that to include that he can participate in that meeting.
Okay, and Katie's second. Okay, any further discussion?
And
All-
Chair, would you
all in
guys like
favor?
any sort of cautionary language in that?
Yep.
Like we stated in the last one, disclosure of information which by law or practice is not available. That's the primary one if we're saying that he doesn't need to recuse himself, I think.
Yes.
I think that ought to be just sort of a standard that we add cautionary language like that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
all in favor? I'm not getting all the pictures, so unless I hear otherwise, it's a unanimous.
I see 5 hands raised.
Pardon?
All 5 hands are raised.
Okay,
5
I'm
yeses.
not getting all the video because of my connection out here in La Ia. Okay, so, next order of business are the lobby registrations. There are 2. The question is, should we acknowledge receipt? Any reason we shouldn't? So I'm going to move that we acknowledge receipt of the 2.
I have
Do I have a second?
I have Nathaniel's. I do not have Gilbert's. I don't think it makes a difference if you all have it in front of you.
And sorry, if I may clarify, for Gilbert Saldana, this is actually a request to remove his name from the lobbyist roles. He's no longer employed by the organization and will not be conducting any lobbying on their behalf. So we're acknowledging receipt of his removal, and then for Nathaniel, we're acknowledging receipt of their registration of a lobbyist. I just wanted to clarify that.
Katie, it's on the back side of the paper that says the date and lobbyist. Like a 2-sided.
And it's an email. It's not the standard form.
Gotcha. Thank you.
That's yeah. That's what the confusion.
So I moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? And unless I hear otherwise, we have unanimous 5-0.
It is.
Okay, then I'm going to call for a meeting of the Board of Ethics executive session. With respect to items listed, one or more executive sessions, there's 2 items in executive session that may consider the evaluation, dismissal, or disciplining of an officer or employee of the County of Maui, where considerations of matters affecting privacy will be involved. The board may also consult with their attorney on questions and issues pertaining to the board's powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. It may also convene an adjudicatory session pursuant to HRS Section 92-6. And the following items may be considered in executive session pursuant to HRS Sections 92-5A, subsection 2, 4, and 8, and 92-6A. So do I have a motion to move into executive session?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? I'm assuming it's unanimous,
It is.
Yes.
5-0. Okay, we'll reconvene in executive session. All right, this is the Maui 2024. Katie Schroeder, you're there?
I am here alone in my home in Lahaina.
This call will be recorded.
And Chivo?
I am in my office at Akaku. I am alone.
And Randall Leach?
Home alone, in office in Kihei.
And I'm home alone in Laia. And I'm gonna, and Carol Schwan, excuse me.
I'm alone in my office.
Okay. These are the votes on the executive session items. Item number 4AI, we voted 5-0 to set the matter for an informal hearing. Item number 4AII, we moved 5-0 to decline review because of a lack of jurisdiction and referred the matter to other investigatory body. The next meeting date is January 8 at 12:30. Unless there's anything further, I'm here to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? I think we had a record here. All in favor? Unanimous.
Everyone have a wonderful holiday.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays. We'll see you all next year.
Thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone.
No
Happy
longer being
holidays,
recorded.
everyone.